Welcome to Women, Wealth, and Entrepreneurship Podcast with Ariel Shaw, MBA. We want to increase your bottom line and create generational wealth that lasts way beyond you. It's 2025 and we are in season 6. Wow, how exciting! This is the year of focus and continued expansion. Our 2025 media participants include Sylvia Dennis-Wray of Sylvia the Advocate, Mica Johnson of Mica Johnson State Farm Insurance Agency, Shamica Davis of JTS Vacations LLC, and LaQuita Brooks of the Motivational Maven. We are excited about your future. Thank you again for joining Women, Wealth, and Entrepreneurship Podcast with Ariel Shaw, founder and president of Southern Crescent Women in Business. Welcome. I am Ariel Shaw, founder and president of Southern Crescent Women in Business, and this is Women, Wealth, and Entrepreneurship Podcast. We have the pleasure of having Dr. Lipman on today. Dr. Lipman, welcome.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Dr. Lipman, tell us about your practice. What is the name of your practice?
I'm the founder and medical director of the Atlanta Fibroid Center here in Atlanta, and I've had the privilege of practicing medicine here in Atlanta since 1991.
Wow. And you guys are located where?
Our center's located in Smyrna, and we just actually opened a brand new center that we're really excited about in Lawrenceville.
Wow, congratulations on that expansion.
Yeah.
So both north, are we thinking we're going to do something south of Atlanta?
Perhaps we'd like to. We've also have a place in Richmond, Virginia now.
Oh, wow.
We're going to be in the DMV and the Motor City, Detroit. So.
Oh, wow. That is amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I didn't know that. Now, Dr. Lipman, tell us, what exactly is your practice? What do you focus on at Atlanta Fibroid?
Our focus is on caring for women suffering with uterine fibroids. Fibroids are the most common pelvic tumor seen in women, and it's a particularly important problem for women of color. At least 80% of African American adult women have these benign tumors, and while some women have no symptoms, a lot of them have a lot of misery. It causes a lot of issues. It's the most common reason why women have heavy periods. It can cause pain, urinary frequency, painful sex. There are a lot of symptoms that can come with these benign tumors. And so we have an outstanding procedure that is called UFE. It's outpatient, non-surgical, home the same day with a Band-Aid. Yet unfortunately, even though it has a long track record of safety and efficacy, most women suffering with fibroids never hear about UFE, and that's a real shame.
So let me ask you this. One, why do you think fibroids are affecting women of color at a higher rate?
Well, it's multifactorial. One, it runs stronger genetically in families, women of color. We don't know where fibroids come from, and that's part of the problem here. And we can talk about the lack of funding for fibroid research, which is a real disparity, a real racial disparity that we can talk about. But once fibroids arrive on the scene, they grow with estrogen. And estrogen, that's why fibroids can grow rapidly when a woman is pregnant, and why they tend not to be a problem for most women once they reach menopause. Estrogen is pervasive. It's in the food, it's in the water, it's in fat. So one of the reasons African American women disproportionately suffer with fibroids is that in general they have more body fat than other racial groups. So we talk about eating healthier. If you can be as close to your ideal body weight, lose that excess body fat, because that's where estrogen is produced and stored in, you'll improve your fibroid symptoms. So exercise, healthier eating, there's hormone-rich foods like red meat, non-organic chicken, dairy, and eating more colored fruits and vegetables that have compounds in them called flavonoids, which block an important enzyme in estrogen production. So there are things you can control, like eating healthier, exercise, weight loss, and then there are things you can't control, like picking your parents, the genetic.
Right, that part. So, okay, now UFE. Tell me again, what does UFE stand for?
Oh, and I forgot one other important point about African Americans having more fibroids. Vitamin D also plays a big role.
Okay. The lack of.
Vitamin D is
wow.
probably the most powerful growth inhibitor of fibroids that we know of. Unfortunately,
Wow.
only 10% of African American women or men have adequate vitamin D. And the darker the pigment of your skin, the harder it is to get adequate vitamin D. So that's another piece that we tell patients: get your vitamin D checked, make sure that your levels are adequate, because you'll need supplementation in some variety, and that will be helpful to kind of keep your fibroids at bay. But for a lot of women, despite doing all the right things,
Wow.
they still need help, and that's where the UFE comes in. The UFE stands for uterine fibroid embolization.
Okay.
It's also called uterine artery embolization because that's the artery that we're in when we're embolizing these fibroid tumors. Embolization just means block the blood flow to the fibroids.
Okay.
So I can put a little tiny catheter, like a piece of spaghetti, into each of the uterine arteries one at a time. And each of those uterine arteries are like big trees. I have my spaghetti-sized catheter in this big trunk of the tree, the uterine artery, the main uterine artery, and then the tree branches, getting smaller and smaller and smaller branches till you get out to the leaves. The fibroids are the leaves of the tree, and I know what size those small branches are, and I can flow direct these particles to block the blood flow to every fibroid in the uterus, whether you have one or 100, and without a blood flow, these fibroids die. The uterus, the big trunk and the main branches, they're all open. The uterus stays alive, but all the fibroids die. And as they die, they soften and shrink. And as that goes on, a woman's symptoms start to go away. And so her uterus is normal and healthy, and we've had numerous children after UFE, but all of her fibroids die. And as they die, the symptoms resolve.
So is this a permanent, or is it something that, may start again?
Well, it's a permanent fix for all the fibroids that are present at the time that we do the embolization. Now, for most women, particularly if they're in their 40s when they have the embolization, it's a one and done.
Okay.
If you're in your late 20s, we see some patients in late 20s, 30s, they may grow brand new fibroids, but it would take years. So even if in the unusual circumstance that they've grown new fibroids, I would say that 2 UFEs is still way, way, way better than 1 surgery.
And typically, if you're doing a surgery, what type of surgery is that? Like a hysterectomy?
Right. There's two main surgeries that are done for fibroids, and it all depends on if you're interested in fertility or not. If you're not interested in fertility, as you mentioned, it's a hysterectomy, removing the uterus surgically. If you're interested in fertility, you can't remove the uterus, obviously. You'd have to try to remove some of the fibroids and then sew the uterus back together and sew the woman back together. That's called a myomectomy. Now, the myomectomy suffers greatly for a number of reasons. One, you can never get them all out. And so these women wake up with living fibroids in their uterus. They took out the bigger ones, but they leave a whole bunch of smaller ones. They start growing, and the recurrence rate for myomectomy is 11% per year. So within 5 years, these women need another something.
Wow.
And for some of these women that undergo myomectomy, they wake up with a hysterectomy because these fibroids bleed. They're very vascular, and that's what we take advantage of with the embolization. So, but intraoperatively, if they cause a lot of bleeding or they can't reconstruct a woman's uterus, it's like that game Jenga. They take one too many fibroids out, and the tower collapses. You got to take the uterus. So every woman that undergoes myomectomy has to sign this medical release saying, you understand the intent is to go in for myomectomy, but you might wake up with a hysterectomy.
Wow.
And that can be really devastating.
Right.
But even for women that know they don't want fertility and they undergo hysterectomy, nobody talks about what happens to those women. Because
aren't they automatically, I've seen and heard, if you get a hysterectomy, it messes up the hormones.
It changes women.
Takes you to menopause and all kind of other things.
Yeah, it changes women. Hysterectomy is the second most common surgery done in the United States, which is kind of staggering because half the population doesn't even have a uterus. And the average age for hysterectomy is less than 40. And I've met too many women less than 30 have already had a hysterectomy. They were suffering so badly, never told about UFE, because none of them ever would have agreed to it. and now they don't have their uterus. So these are young women women of color typically. Now they don't have their uterus. Nobody talks about what happens to them. Yes, they're not having bleeding anymore,
right.
but now they're changed psychologically. There's a number of women that struggle psychologically, like a man being castrated. There's a lot of sexual dysfunction, and it's embarrassing. People don't want to talk about it. Loss of libido, loss of orgasm. 39, the average age of hysterectomy, is the new 29. All of a sudden, these young women have no interest in sex. Bone loss. There's a lot of bone loss after hysterectomy. Urinary leaking. Next time you're in Publix or Kroger, look see who's on the package of the adult diapers. Who I think should be on there is an elderly man, a 90-year-old man, or a 90-year-old woman. You won't see that. You'll see a young, attractive, 35, 40-year-old African-American woman. Why? Because that's the target for who's wearing diapers.
Well, I can tell, Dr. Lipman, you are very passionate about this. From my personal experience, one of my relatives, actually, she is under 40. She had a hysterectomy and actually almost died last year.
Right.
I think she ended up having to have maybe 2. They had to go in like twice. It was really bad. So I'm a huge proponent of, if you don't have to do surgery, don't do surgery.
You don't. It's
especially when you're that young.
It's one of the most unnecessary surgeries, if not the most unnecessary surgery done in the United States, because these are benign tumors. So a hysterectomy is an amputation, and these are young women again. So the question becomes, why are doctors amputating young black women for benign disease?
Ooh.
Please, somebody answer me that.
Oh, wow.
In fact, I have an ad in my office. It's a full-page ad from Depends. As I mentioned, these people know who their target is. It's an attractive 35-ish-year-old black woman, and you're seeing her from behind, and she's scooching on her skinny jeans over her adult diaper. And there's some cutesy slogan like, "They'll never know your secret."
Wow.
What? Why does that woman need, a young, attractive woman need a diaper? They know exactly who they're marketing to.
So is this, how many physicians are doing this procedure in the United States? 1, and 2, why is there such a why are individuals they don't know about this as much?
I'm a different type of MD.
Okay.
I'm a medical doctor, and my field of training is interventional radiology. These are physicians that are specifically trained at these minimally invasive, less invasive treatment options. We can treat conditions all over the body without surgery. My particular niche is treating women who are suffering with fibroids non-surgically. So this UFE procedure, they come into our center. It's a 30-minute procedure. They have about a 3 or 4 hour recovery.
Did you say 30 minutes?
30 minutes. And they go home with a Band-Aid.
30 minutes.
A Band-Aid. They leave our center with a Band-Aid at the top of their right leg where we go in. That's it. And so we've been, and it's available throughout the country, but this is an area. So they tell me I've done more UFE than anyone in the country. It's what we're known for. It's all I do. I don't do anything else. That's all who I care for is women suffering with fibroids. But this procedure is available throughout the country.
Okay.
It's the gatekeepers of women's health, the gynecologists, aren't mentioning it. Because if you have fibroids, you're going to your gynecologist.
Right.
Or if you see an internal medicine or a family doctor, they'll say, "Oh, you're having heavy periods? You need to see the GYN." So the gynecologists control
typically
it.
They'll do that ultrasound just to kind of see, do you see fibroids? Yeah.
Yeah, they will get a history. And as I say, the most common reason why women have heavy periods and pelvic pain is fibroids. So they'll take a history. They'll get the history of these crime scene-like periods, pain, urinary frequency, because these fibroids are rocks, and they'll just press on whatever, press on the bladder to cause urinary frequency, press on the lining to cause heavy periods, press on pelvic nerves to cause pain. And so they can make a woman look pregnant. So as a woman enlarges, the gynecologist will describe them as a certain size pregnancy. So So you have a woman who's
What?
I've
never heard that. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So it enlarges them. In fact, we treated Cynthia Bailey. I can mention that she was brave and took her
from Real Housewives of Atlanta. Yeah.
Right. She took her story public, so I can talk about it.
Right.
The paparazzis were thinking she was pregnant, and they were like, "Who's Cynthia Bailey's baby daddy? Like, she's pregnant." All this like nonsense. She wasn't pregnant. She was suffering horribly with fibroids.
Wow.
And so here's a supermodel has to defend like the fact that she's not, with a flat stomach.
Right.
So this amazing procedure is available throughout the country, but the gatekeepers of women's health, who all know about this, the gynecologists all know. In fact, their society endorsed it many years ago, because eventually they gotta look at it. They gave it the highest level of medical evidence for safety and efficacy that you can have, level A. It's the highest level of evidence, because it is as proposed. It's one of the biggest medical breakthroughs. I'd put it up there in terms of significance to women with the pap smear and the mammogram. And so here's the gatekeepers of women's health knowing about this, but instead they want to do surgery. All gynecologists are surgeons. All OBGYNs are surgeons. They're trained to do surgery, and yet they know about this non-surgical outpatient procedure that's covered by all insurance, and you don't mention it. I don't know how you sleep at night.
Well, that was my next question is it covered by insurance?
Yes.
And you just answered that. So it's covered. So honestly, it's just a matter of making that decision. Now, if you are a patient and you have this issue and your gynecologist is not recommending it, you can then request it, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
But you got to know about it. So you've got to get that second opinion from an interventional radiologist like myself that is trained in UFE, and get that second opinion and then make the decision for yourself.
So walk me through that process. I go to my gynecologist. She determines, oh my goodness, you have these fibroids. She recommends one option of surgery. I said, let me see what else is out there.
Right.
Do I then ask her what else is out there, or do I do research and then make an appointment with you?
I would do both.
Okay.
Unfortunately,
like, we don't need a referral. That's what I'm trying to
I see. Well, it depends on your insurance, unfortunately. But if you have an HMO insurance plan, you need a referral. Now, it doesn't have to be from the gynecologist. If the gynecologist says, oh, no, that procedure is not going to work,
medicine,
or you're not a candidate, or whatever nonsense. I wrote a blog piece, the top 10 things your gynecologist will tell you about fibroids or the UFE procedure that are entirely false, because they want to do surgery. So anyway, if you have an HMO plan, you need a referral. It can come from a primary care physician, an internist, a family physician. So it doesn't have to be your gynecologist, but you do need a referral. For the other plans, PPO, POS, other plans, you can just call our office and come in for a consult and get that second opinion.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good information to know. Now, how are you communicating this procedure? Are we starting to maybe target colleges? Because I would think that would be a great place to start.
Right. I've spoken all over the country on this. I'll speak to anybody that'll listen. I just did Pastor Jamal Bryant's podcast.
Oh, yeah, that's my pastor.
Yeah. Well, we were out at New Birth and filming his podcast, and we've been out to New Birth and seen him do his services a number of times. We're good friends, so I've known Pastor Bryant for a while now. So we talk to a lot of African American church groups, women's ministries, colleges, Morehouse, Clark Atlanta, Spelman. I was at Tuskegee. Imagine a white male physician speaking to several hundred young black women. And my talk was, you're in the midst of your own Tuskegee experiment and you don't even realize it.
Wow.
It got very real.
That's heavy.
So I've spoken to, we were at the AKA meeting. They had their Southeastern Conference in Orlando.
A lot of sororities.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I was in Orlando speaking at their Southeastern Conference,
Yeah.
Deltas, Zetas. I've been doing this almost 30 years now. We are known throughout the Atlanta community and beyond for not only our care for women with fibroids. In fact, we just had our 20-year celebration of the Atlanta Fibroid Center at MCK.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Had a real big turnout. Patients came and, great testimonials about literally UFE transformed their life. I mean, they are having these horrific crime scene-like periods. Everything they do or don't do revolves around these horrible periods they get every month. And then they get suddenly transformed into a normal life again. They're free. I mean, they don't have to worry about where every bathroom is, having changes of clothes with them, whether they can do this or not do that, or work or have relations. Everything they did revolved around this horrible thing, and now they're free.
So your expansion, even like your Lawrenceville office, are your physicians doing this procedure, or are you the primary person doing the procedure at all of these locations?
No, we have a physician at each of the locations. I'm in the main location in Smyrna, and we have another doctor we just hired who will be taking over in Lawrenceville. We have doctors in Richmond. We have doctors in, say, the DMV in Detroit that will be doing it there. So I'm going to be the kind of overarching medical director for these facilities to make sure everybody's on the same page and we're doing best practices at all of the facilities, because we are a center of excellence and we want to make sure that any center that's doing this under our umbrella has the same center of excellence in doing the things we do.
And just as, you have these drug companies going out to doctors' offices, do you guys interact with the insurance area to kind of try to, say, hey, like HMO, why don't you guys, are there conversations there?
Believe me, I've tried, because we have a much better way of doing things, and they should recognize that. And before anybody
Sounds like y'all need a lobbyist.
We do. Well, yeah, the hospitals have big lobbies. They do. There's a lot of the stakeholders, because hysterectomy is big business. Big pharma, big pharma's in it.
Surgery is business. It is what, and just for full disclosure, I worked with I'm not going to say the name, but a medical college in the state of Georgia. And so I've worked with over 350 physicians, 17 specialties, and my position was expanding their footprint across the state of Georgia. And so I worked with all kind of doctors, REI, OB, cardiologists. The gamut is wide. And surgery is a thing, I mean, from a business standpoint, it's just what it is. So I would be interested to see, how that conversation looks. And I mean, I'll say this, doctors do refer to each other.
Yeah, they do.
There has to be a certain network, and it has to be nurtured, if for lack of a better way of saying it.
But imagine I have a procedure that, say, 30 minutes, home the same day with a Band-Aid.
Yeah, they don't want to cut their business now.
Right. Imagine, yeah. And that would replace the second most common surgery done in the United States.
Yeah.
So, yes, we do have gynecologists that refer to us at Atlanta Fibroid Center, but most gynecologists won't even mention UFE, even though they all know about it. And so, yes, doctors refer to each other, but unfortunately, it's a very difficult thing, even though you would think they would just naturally want what's best for their patients. But patients have to be they're the advocate. CEO of their own body. They know their body better than anybody else. They've got to take some ownership here and say, yes, hysterectomy is an option, but it should be the option of absolute last resort for fibroids. And I know there must be something out there, and they have to do their own research, and they'll find UFE. If you go on, alternatives to fibroids or non-surgical treatment option for fibroids, it's out there, but for the time being, you have to kind of do your own research and be your own advocate, and just don't settle for an amputation when UFE is available.
Right. And I mean, I never heard it coined that way, but it's a good way to say it. I mean, anything that you're removing from your body essentially is that
an organ you were born with.
Yeah.
And again, it has consequences for taking it out. Like, I'll hear all the time, well, my doctor said since I'm no longer interested in fertility, I don't need my uterus anymore. And they've got women believing that. That's absurd. There's so many consequences to taking out a woman's uterus, and women just take it on blind faith that, oh, okay, I don't need it anymore. I just take it out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I definitely think there needs to be more conversations prior to, whether that's at the college, whether that's in the churches. And again, there are a lot of Black women in church.
Yes. Yes.
So that conversation definitely needs to be had. Now, you mentioned that typically the symptoms kind of dissipate because of menopause. Now, if you are someone in perimenopause and you have, you're taking hormones, you're increasing your estrogen.
Right.
Does that now,
yes,
possibly encourage more
yes.
fibroids?
Yeah, I mean, we do treat even postmenopausal women on HRT because they don't have bleeding anymore because they're in menopause, but they have bulk-related symptoms, most commonly urinary frequency. So you have this big rock-hard fibroid on top of the bladder compressing it. And so despite the fact that they're not having any bleeding, they're having horrible urinary frequency and waking up multiple times a night, like their husband with the prostate condition. And so we treat postmenopausal women that have fibroid issues and that are causing significant symptoms. So it's not just the premenopause, although by far that's much more common.
Right.
Because of this extra estrogen, they can have a problem. And so we'll take care of that as well.
So you said women of color. Is it primarily Black women, or is it all women of color?
Both.
Okay.
Most commonly African American, but all women of color.
Okay.
And so Asian women have the lowest body fat and the lowest incidence.
Okay.
African American women the highest. But again, it's multifactorial. There are other factors, but that's
it's
one.
affecting Hispanic.
Hispanic,
okay.
Latina. Yep. As the melanation, as the lightness of the hue of your skin decreases, that seems to, have an issue with that as well. But again, there are so many things that you can help with, despite the genetics, that you can get this fixed with UFE. And so,
right. And you mentioned research.
Yes.
Does it exist?
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, they looked at it. Fibroids are near the bottom. They looked at 300 medical conditions, the most common medical conditions. Fibroids was, in terms of research funding, in the bottom 50. Fibroid research garners about $18 million a year in research funding, which sounds like a lot of money, but in research it's peanuts.
Right.
And so it affects 30 million women, primarily women of color, at a $30 billion impact to society each year. You take a condition that primarily affects Caucasians, cystic fibrosis, it affects about 30,000 people. And because of the research, they're now living into adulthood, even having children, whereas when I grew up, it was like a death sentence. These cystic fibrosis patients died in childhood. Wow. But through the research, now they're living into adulthood and having somewhat normal adult lives and even children. 30,000 individuals, they garner $94 million in research each year for an impact that's much less than fibroids. So you have...
How are they getting those dollars? Is this through lobbying?
Well, through government funding
Yeah,
and
okay.
NIH and government monies allocated. So a condition that affects primarily Caucasians getting $3,000 per person affected versus a condition which has much more impact to
Right.
society but affects black women getting 69 cents per person affected.
Right.
So that's one thing that really needs to be addressed that unfortunately it's going on deaf ears. I mean, there is legislation, the Stephanie Tubbs Jones Fibroid Research and Education Act. Stephanie Tubbs Jones was a congresswoman who unfortunately passed away, but she was suffering with fibroids, and her legislation is just sitting dormant. It calls on two things. One, increase the funding to the NIH for fibroid research, something like $30 million a year for 5 years. That would really help. And then the other piece of it is it directs the CDC to educate not only the lay community about UFE, but also physicians about UFE so that they know about it and they can no longer hide. The public
Right.
will know about
Right.
UFE. So there's a educational piece and then there's more research. But unfortunately, even though that legislation has been around for years now, my congressman is one of the is signed on,
Right.
David Scott.
Okay.
It's being championed on the House side by Representative Clark out of New York.
Okay.
The Senate side is Cory Booker. But
Okay.
if you look at the list of people that have co-signed this legislation, they're all D's. There aren't any R's.
So they haven't
And so-
they haven't moved it across the aisle.
Right. So,
Yeah,
I mean, this should not be partisan.
absolutely.
In fact, we've reached out to Senator Scott from South Carolina. He's an African-American gentleman. He's an R.
he used
say-
to be our insurance man.
So he needs to,
I'm originally from
we
Charleston.
need to get some R's on there and move this
Yeah.
legislation. There's no reason this should be
Right.
partisan. I don't know why R's won't sign on to this, but
maybe it's just a conversation. I'm a believer in sometimes you just got to bring people to the table and make sure they understand.
well, if you can bring them to the table, I'm happy to sit in. I don't know how to build that table. Shirley Chisholm, just build your table if you're not invited. But
right.
I don't know. I'm not good with I'm not a carpenter. I don't know how to build tables. But if you can pull that off, count me in. I'll bring my own chair.
Okay. You'll bring your chair.
Yep.
Well, Dr. Lipman, tell me this. How did you get into this space? What has led you in this field? Because
Well,
you're very passionate, which I appreciate, especially as a woman of color. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Everything in life, I believe, is God putting you in a place. You may not understand it at the time, but everything is done is because of Him putting you where you need to be.
Right.
And I met my wife by accident. I applied to the wrong residency program, and if I would have applied, I know it's a long story, but again, I would have never met my wife of 40 years now if I didn't make a mistake and apply to the wrong place. And so I'd been treating and embolizing cancerous tumors for a number of years. And I got invited to this big radiology meeting that happens every year right after Thanksgiving in McCormick Place in Chicago, this huge place, tens of thousands of radiologists. I never go to the meeting because it's a diagnostic, it's for x-ray reading, diagnostic radiologist. I'm an interventional, I care for patients. So it's a little niche-y area of radiology. So I never go to that meeting. It doesn't have anything for me. But I was invited to come and speak on what I was doing in cancer embolization. And so I went, and it was this big auditorium. You probably could seat 1,000 people, and there were probably 15 people in the audience.
Wow.
And so normally when I speak, I just walk off stage and go enjoy the meeting. But I felt so bad. I gave my little talk, and I sat down just to have another warm body for the next people that are behind me. Well, the person that was behind me just did the first 11 UFE patients in the United States. So UFE was discovered by accident also.
Wow.
We've been embolizing cancer for many years, but this group in France decided, let's embolize fibroids, because the reason to embolize cancerous tumors for a lot of patients is to cut off the blood supply to these very vascular tumors and make it an easier surgery to perform. Quicker, easier, just take out. It's a lot easier to operate on something that's not bleeding.
Right.
So fibroids are very vascular. Let's embolize fibroids prior to hysterectomy. So this group in France started doing that. Well, what happens is in France, it's socialized medicine. In this country, when I was embolizing cancerous tumors, they go right to the operating room after I'm done. But in France, because it's an elective procedure, it's socialized medicine, rationed healthcare, they would get embolized by the interventional radiologist in France, and then they would go home and wait 6 weeks, 7 weeks, 8 weeks for their elective hysterectomy. Well, what happened during that interval? The women's symptoms went away.
Wow.
So now they're going, wait a minute. These women would call up their gynecologist saying, I feel great.
Surgery.
Right. I feel great. Do I really need this surgery?
Wow.
And when they looked at it, the answer was no. You didn't need that second part. All you needed was the first part. So the gynecologist that was overseeing the operation in France, his best friend was the chief of gynecology at UCLA. And he said, you better get your interventional radiologist at UCLA and look at this. This is exciting. So Scott Goodwin was the chief of IR at the time at UCLA. He started doing it, and he presented the first 11 cases. And so I'm sitting in the audience, and the light bulb went off. And so I'm in Atlanta. There's a lot of African-American women I could help. I'm going to start doing it. I did the first one in the Southeast, and I amassed the largest experience in UFE. As I say, I normally don't go to that meeting. I never would have gone.
Look at that.
So
you were right where you needed to be.
I was right where I needed to be. In fact, I remember calling my wife.
Wow.
I called my wife on the phone from Chicago. I'm like, I know what I'm going to do the rest of my life. I have my purpose now. I have my why.
Wow.
Oprah's always like, you got to have your why.
Right.
At that moment, I knew my why.
That is a dynamic story, first and foremost, because now I get more of your passion, because one, it wasn't even supposed to happen like that.
It was, but it wasn't.
It wasn't supposed to happen like that. And the fact that something that was honestly going to already be like a precursor to surgery now had the ability where these women no longer had to have surgery. Now you're like sounding the alarm. This is here, and we've been doing this for this amount of years.
Right.
Tell your patients.
Right.
I
Get that
it.
second opinion.
I get it.
Yeah.
Dr. Lipman, it has been a pleasure. How do we find you?
Well, there are a lot of ways, fortunately. Our website is atlii.com. It stands for Atlanta Interventional Institute. That's the parent company of the Atlanta Fibroid Center. So atlii.com is easy. We have an Instagram page, dr_ my last name. So dr_ LIPMAN. We have a YouTube channel, Atlanta Fibroid Center. They can actually watch me do an entire UFE on YouTube.
Oh.
And it's not gory because it's not surgical, right? There's no surgery, so it's not gory, and it's not like Pimple Popper where it's gross. It's very simple and easy to watch. It's like a 38-minute video because I'm talking as I'm doing it, because it's a 30-minute procedure, but it's a little slower because I'm talking as I'm doing each step. So a lot of people like to watch that video and see what it's all about. And so there's so many different ways to reach us. But if the old-fashioned way is just to pick up the phone and call 770-953-2600. That's our office phone number. But it's easy to find me, fortunately.
Well, it has been a pleasure. And all of your offices, are they all under this one number? And then you'll determine where people go?
Well, for the time being, the simple answer is yes.
Okay.
But it's not going to be that way for once they're kind of up and running and so forth. Certainly the Atlanta one is going to be different numbers. And then as we get into these other cities, they'll each have their own individual number and their own individual pages and social media and so forth. But we'll be overseeing all of it.
Well, I'm excited about the expansion. I'm excited about getting this information out to more women of color. And I'm hopeful about making sure that we're bridging the gap on a couple things, whether it be with other physicians, whether it be with the legislative community for research, because apparently there's a need.
There's a huge need.
Yeah. It has been a pleasure.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Thank
I really
you for joining
appreciate
us. It has been another episode of Women, Wealth, and Entrepreneurship. I am Ariel Shaw. Thank you. This has been another episode of Women, Wealth, and Entrepreneurship podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. Again, I am Ariel Shaw, your host of Women, Wealth, and Entrepreneurship. And again, our media participants include Sylvia Dennis-Wray of Sylvia, The Advocate, Mica Johnson of the Mica Johnson State Farm Agency, Shamica Davis of JTS Vacations LLC, and LaQuita Brooks of the Motivational Maven. Thank you again for joining us. I hope you had an amazing experience.